these things here. Never forgive, never forget. Hospital porters, pride and dignity, stop the New World Order. Welcome to Panwo TV. Welcome to a very cold and icy Oxford. I've only taken my glove off to operate the camera. I can already feel it getting cold. It's about -3 at the moment. The cold weather has returned, and you know that's a nice thing. You know, despite the cost of heating, I do like it when it gets cold. Maybe it's to do with the place I live in, but we don't spend that much more in cold weather than in horrible wet weather. Maybe just keeping everything dry takes up a lot of heating as well in the sort of mild wet weather you normally get in southern England. But I'm not going to be in southern England for much longer today because I'm heading up north, north. I'm going to Truth Seekers Northeast. I'm on my way there, getting the coach from the usual place, Gloucester Green, Oxford, and I'm going to head up to Newcastle-upon-Tyne where my friends Maureen, Dawn, Trish, Dave and all the others, they're all going to be there, and not seen them for a few months now, and I'm looking forward very much to seeing them again. I'm doing 2 talks for this group, one on Friday, one on tomorrow, Friday, and another on Saturday. Now, today is Thursday, and I'm actually going up a day early. The reason is 2 reasons. Firstly, I want to see a friend of mine, someone who's not connected to Truth Seekers Northeast, and I can't really see together. Okay, at this point I'm going to interject with a studio segment here because thanks to the vagaries of my GoPro 3 camera, I lost some material there while I was in the middle of filming. I could go and reshoot it in Oxford on another morning, but to be honest, I can't be bothered. So I'm going to fill in the blanks. There's only a handful of these blanks with brief studio segments. What I actually meant to say at that point was I was going to go and see a friend who's not really connected to Truth Seekers Northeast, and so it wasn't really possible to see them together. And so it was a reason to go up slightly early, a day early, along with other reasons as well. I also meant to say at this point that National Express have completely messed up their entire schedule, as you know from when I went to Lytham St Anne's. I got the train to Lytham St Anne's to Lapis, which I wouldn't have done normally. It cost me, I remember how much it cost. But the coach is no good because National Express have made a really big boo-boo with their schedules. And the same goes for the route to Newcastle. I can no longer leave at like 6 AM and get there about 2. I have to leave at like, the earliest I can leave at 7 and get there about 4, which is really not really on. If it's a Friday, I've got to basically go straight from the coach to do my presentation at Truth Seekers Northeast at the venue, literally just about 2 hours to spare. If the coach is late, I end up, it's even less time to kind of get over the journey before I'm doing my presentation. So I thought I'll go up the evening before, and I'll go the evening before, and I'll spend the night in a hotel. And I could have got the train, of course, to Newcastle, which is a possibility. However, the amount of trains cost nowadays, it's actually cheaper to get the coach and stay overnight than it is to go up on the day on the train. So I'm going up a day early. That red light up there is not a UFO, by the way, it's a crane. Still very dark up there. The sun has yet to rise at this time of the year. It's just gone 7 o'clock. So I think next thing to do is go to the coach station and get my coach. Look how many they've got as well. It's back in Leeds. First time I've seen those. I wonder why they suddenly appeared. Yeah, I see snow coming down. Well, I made it. I'm here. This is it's about 4 p.m. now, and it's pretty cold. It'll soon go below freezing. I've seen there's little patches of old snow, actually, really light snow here. It's cold. I'm not 100% sure where I've got to go. I know it's in this direction. If in doubt, if you're in a strange place in a city, always go down to the river. Once you're on the river, you can find your way more easily because it's open. That's always what I do in London. And we're here on the River Tyne here with all these big bridges here. That's the famous Tyne Bridge, is the arch there, but there's many others. I think that's the Metro Bridge, where the urban railway goes over. So the journey's pretty uneventful. I've been, since I filmed in the morning, I've been on the road. I slept a bit on the coach actually, and I was trying to listen. I've got my Millennial loaded up on the audio on here, so I've been trying to listen to that when I've not been sleeping. I've got a good book to read as well, which I'll show you when I do the souvenirs. I'm now heading for what I hope is the Newcastle Central Travel Lodge. I still like it's nice to get it should be okay to check in, and I'm going to try and get myself I don't know, maybe have a cup of tea or something, and then meet up with my friend, which I'm meeting at 7. I'm meeting at 7 o'clock in a Wetherspoons somewhere else in the city, which I've got to try and find. I've been using my mobile phone to navigate. I swore I had an A to Z of Newcastle. I mean, I know you have to your mobile phone. You can always use your mobile phone to navigate. You know, I love the good old-fashioned A to Zs. I really do. And I can't seem to sort the problem with the camera. It's annoying, but I'll just replace it, I think. But I was just explaining how the good old-fashioned paper maps I have a sentimental attachment to. And of course, if, for example, electronics fails for any reason, which of course forbid, the bad guys would never do that, would they? Because paper maps you can't delete or edit or things like that. So for the same reason I like paperback books instead of Kindle, I like good old-fashioned paper maps. Right, yeah, the camera keeps stopping. This is a bit annoying. Maybe because there's something wrong with it. Maybe I'll check the settings, but this is like a GoPro 3, it's quite an old one. But it was given to me actually by a viewer, which is a very nice present of theirs. But I didn't use it all that much until I went to Hull when I needed it. Because it was a nice present for them to give me, but I found that the Sony camcorder was good enough. Now I'm actually using this now because of course the Sony camcorder's packed up. It's like a double-decker bridge there. See, there's traffic underneath, road traffic underneath. I suppose maybe there's a railway on top. Well, I think this is it. I think I'm here. I'm sure this is the one. It's the Travel Lodge. Yeah, it's an uneventful journey. I mean, I did try to film it. You can't capture on film exactly what it looks like, but when we were on the coach, just as we were coming into Northumberland, we had that like beautiful dark cloud came over, and I could see snow falling. By the time it reached the ground, I could see like flurries of snow coming down from the sky. It was rain by the time it reached the ground, but it was still 3 degrees centigrade, enough to melt it. That was beautiful. And of course the sexual harassment stickers on the window, I've never seen those before. Why are they suddenly saying all stickers about sexual harassment? Funny enough, when I was in Australia there were posters everywhere about sexual harassment. Now I don't know if that's because there's been a rise in sexual harassment lately on the National Express network. It's just another, white male guilt trip that they decided to play, and they're highlighting it for that reason. I don't know. I just thought it was just odd. I'd not seen those before. Last time we went on the coast, those weren't there. Right, guys, I think I'll try and see where I can get in. I have to go round and round and round until I find a way in. Here we are, I think. This is it. Right, wrong hotel, guys. I've got to go to the other one. Apparently there's more than one travel lodge. Apparently if I walk along here, it's quayside, so behind the law courts, they said. So I'll It's not too far, as you can see, so that'll be all right. I recognise this actually because I drove along this road with Maureen. I recognise that big arch bridge there. I recognise that. All right, so I'm getting closer now. Now they said it was behind the law courts. Now I recognise Newcastle Crown Courts because those steps are very familiar to me. So I haven't worked out the zoom on this GoPro yet. Because of course that's where Mark Steele was doing his lawsuit and everyone like that, and all the other people were doing lawsuits against the lockdown and things like that, and against 5G and stuff like that. So you'll recognise that if you're familiar with the truth movement anyway. They said that where I'm going is behind the law courts, so that's good. I'll just go behind the law courts and see if I can find it. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. Oops. Right. I'm going to go a bit further along here actually, because according to the map I've got to go slightly around the other side of the court, so that makes it easier. Oh. Some of you might be wondering incidentally why I didn't get the train, because of course I have used the train a couple of times because I like to get to Lytham St Anne's for Lapis. So I can't remember what I said at this point. I think I might have repeated the point I made earlier. Oh, there was sort of the rail strikes. I mentioned the rail strikes, didn't I? Yeah. I think I'll come on to those later on. But yeah, there's lovely cobbled streets here. The law courts are quite new. There's a lot of new buildings along here like that. I don't know what that is over there. Looks like some kind of giant mylar balloon. But there's a lot of old stuff around here as well. And a lot of 19th century. The railway, the bridge I went over was sort of 19th century. I don't need this now. So that's my next port of call now, is the Travelodge. And so I'll go and check myself in. And then all I've got to do is wait for my friend. Well, I've made it. I've arrived a little while ago. As you can see, I've unpacked a few things. And I'm here in my hotel room in Travelodge Newcastle Central. I found it in the end, as you saw. It took a while to find the door, actually. I had to walk around. I walked around one way, then walk around the other. The view out the window is not spectacular. I'm going to make sure you can see there's a lot of glare on the window, but there's some offices next door. You can see it's across the road there. There's just lots of office blocks in there. As you can just see people sitting in their desks down there. And I'm just sort of wandering around here. Do you like my t-shirt, by the way, Dreaming Saucers? Oh, that was quite appropriate, I thought, Dreaming Saucers. I've worn that a few times. Quite small, actually, like the one I had in Hull. The cherry picture, of course. You can't go anywhere without the cherry picture. And in the bathroom, of course, we have psycho shower, warning sign on the wall so you don't get sued, mirror, toilet, you know the rest. And of course, there's the sanitary bag, as Alan Partridge would say. A sanitary bag? They know I'm a man. Obviously, in here they don't. They don't want to misgender me. So yeah, another reason actually I should point out I never mentioned earlier that I didn't get the train is rail strikes. I could book the train and then they'd go on strike. I had this problem when I went to Mablethorpe. You can book a train and they go on strike. Sorry, not Mablethorpe, to Lytham St Anne's. Yeah, I barely escaped when I went to Lytham St Anne's. I just literally, the strikes were on the day before and after I was travelling. They didn't do it on the Friday, which is just amazing good luck. So there's another reason for using the coach rather than the train. There's a lot of rail strikes at the moment. So we're going for okay, it's evening, just about 6:30. I'm walking through the streets of Newcastle. I must say, this is not a very pedestrian friendly city. I've had to go down a couple of tunnels. I wasn't sure where I was going. I had to double back and cross a road to go down the right tunnel. I think I'll try and find a different way back. Looks a bit dodgy as well. Half the Pelican crossings don't work, but I'm probably going to get there on time anyway. Nice to head in. The place I'm going to is called the Five Swans. It's a Wetherspoon. So Wetherspoons always do a good thing. Colin Woolford won't be there this time, that's the only thing. But it's bitterly cold, freezing already, definitely below zero. I'm gonna put my glove back on. See you later.
There's your first clue.
It's a ring there. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Panmo TV viewers, there's a bit of a Panmo TV history here. You've seen him, you've heard from him before, and he's now with me. It's Paul Armstrong. Hello, Paul.
Hello, what are you doing?
Not bad, mate, not bad. It's good to
Cross-eyed, yeah.
This is the local chap. So, do you believe in ghosts?
Yep.
All right. Do you believe in hospital porters? Mm-hmm. Well, we don't really disagree on much then.
Plenty of them.
Yeah, he's meeting another one now. We have met before. Though. Yeah, we have met before, haven't we? A little while ago.
At 2000 North East, yeah. A couple of years back, briefly. Just because there's so many people there, though, you can't chat, can you? You know, it's like everyone wants your attention, and
yeah,
this is a lot more. This is better.
It is. Yeah, the thing is, I was coming up early anyway, and I couldn't really sort of say to Maureen, "Oh, put me up for another night, would you?" I mean, it seemed to be. So I booked into the hotel, and I thought, well, what about Paul? I'll see Paul's in the area.
I'm
so I meet
in the
Paul,
area.
Because that's right. Because it's like. Since I think it was going to be in the evening, I've already explained why I couldn't come tomorrow, even though I'm doing my first talk like 7 p.m. tomorrow. The coach arrives at like 4 p.m. I'm like, no bloody way am I going to. So straight off the coach, go straight after 8 hours on the coach and do a talk for Maureen's Truth Seekers North East. That's really out of order. So I thought I'd come here early and see Paul. Paul, it's good to have you on the show. It's good to see you then.
Good to meet you.
I appreciate all the comments you left
yes.
over the years.
Over many years.
I'm sure a lot of your viewers will remember Paul's comments, and he's on
regular in the chat box on Thursday nights as well.
That's right, Panmo Radio too. So it's one of these.
Easy to get a hold of.
No, so I've
got a YouTube channel, but I haven't really put anything on for a couple of years. But I wouldn't mind getting back into it. Like,
it's like
it's an effort, though, isn't it?
It is.
You really excel, though, don't you? Like, it's your sort of main thing.
Because I don't do much else.
Nah, but, yeah,
that's why I do so much.
You have to be use it to be regular. You know what I mean? Like, you have to really into it.
If you like football,
I'm a content absorber rather than a creator.
Oh, right, yeah. Most people are. Most people are.
Sorry.
If you want to do that,
cheers.
Cheers. So you're a bit of a tech dinosaur.
I think I always will be as well.
I mean, I edit, but I edit very simply. I just I don't put in fancy graphics and stuff like that. I just put.
You're advanced.
It's actually quite simple with Windows.
Advanced compared to me.
Well, yeah. I mean, I just put I've only been doing that I haven't been doing that for long actually. I mean, my first couple of years I didn't do any of that. Now I just put titles and things. I don't put fancy special effects on. So as a technical filmmaker, I'm quite simple. I'm sort of like found footage rather than James Cameron.
Found footage.
Paul, are I gonna have to have something to eat. You gonna have a meal as well?
No, I've eaten.
I'll get me some. I've not eaten today, so I'll get me some grub. Anyway, we'll see you later, ladies and gentlemen.
Cheers, everyone.
Well, I'm home now from the pub. I had a wonderful time with Paul Armstrong. It's great to meet him. Known him a long time online. I did meet him once before at a Truth Seekers North East event. It's great to see him again. We had a great evening together, and now I've got to put together my talks. Well, I've already it's almost done, but I still have a lot of work to do on tomorrow's talk. So I'm going to get to work on that before I go to bed. Luckily, this hotel serves good breakfast, so I'm going to go and have that. Tomorrow morning, and then I'll meet up with my friends at Truth Seekers North East later. So, I think it's time for bed. I reckon after I've done a little bit of revision. But Paul, if you're watching, thank you very much. It was great to see you. Hope you got home safe, and hope to see you again very, very soon. Well, good morning, everyone. It is Friday morning now. I slept like Rip Van Winkle last night, so I must have needed it. After I got back from the pub. Paul got home okay. I have to text him and find out. I'm now, our checkout time is 12 noon. It's now about 8:45. I've got a lot of work to do this morning. I've got to prepare for my talk, which is what I'm basically going to be doing now. So you see here, I'm just preparing for it, basically for the rest of the morning. And then I'm meeting up with Maureen and the others about 3 p.m. So I'll probably find a pub somewhere when they kick me out of this place. So I better get on with that. So in the meantime, does anyone fancy a Loose Werther's original? Yeah. This is a very kind of trad Herpanmo moment right now, because this is the Leeds, so the Gateshead Millennium Bridge, and I'm going to go over it just because why not? It's there, as Mallory said. So I'm going to go over the Gateshead Millennium Bridge and see what's on the other side. Just I suppose you go over when you get over the other side. I suppose it's Gateshead. That's where the grey was. Gateshead, most famous for the grey. It's actually not most famous for the grey, but it's that's what's famous for me. All right, that's bikes and pedestrians, and this I suppose is pedestrians. No cars on this particular bridge. It's all pedestrian and bikes only, and it's a weird. I suppose it's very much my sort of thing, you know. It's fun even if it's not practical, you know. It's because it's nice and it's unusual. Why not do it rather than do the most sort of simple, rather than do the most sort of like logical, practical thing. It's a lovely view. That is all the bridges across the Tyne. This is the river that was the Romans called it Tina, which was basically an adaptation of a Celtic word, and even though it did not mark the northern border of the Roman Empire, it was very symbolic of that because it was quite close to Hadrian's Wall. I'm not going to have a Boudica moment, fear not. There's a Royal Navy flag. There's a white ensign. I don't know what's that. I think there's an old ship here. It's flying the old white ensign. Maybe that's it. But yeah, you see this. You see the old buildings of the city there, mixed with the new over this side here. And there's these strange structures there. And there's this big glass thing up here. Actually, I'm not sure. I remember that was something to do with the. That was something to do with the Commonwealth Games, or was it the climate thing? I can't remember. Yeah. The Gateshead Millennium Bridge, right. Oh, Royal Navy, that's it, right. It's a Royal Navy establishment. That's why it's flying the white ensign. And so we come to the far side of the bridge. You can see how it's attached there. It seems like this is obviously meant to be adjusted. There's like some machinery there, it's a wheel. This support is clearly designed to move. It's clearly designed to be, you see down there some what looks like hydraulic rams down there, if you see. Can you see those? So that's probably what it is. Alright, now I've come all the way over this bridge. I'm going to go all the way back. I'm not going to go and see. I've actually been where the Gateshead Grey appeared. If you actually watch, if you actually read the Herpanmo blog, which hardly any of you do, I did an article called Pre-Roswell-Roswells, where I showed you the place where the Gateshead Grey was. I'll tell you what, because when I went to be filmed by Richard D. Hall, I appeared on his show. I think it was the second time he took me to that location. He was living in Wycombe then, which is before he moved to Wales, and he took me to the location, showed me the church with the basement. I didn't go down into the basement. Apparently it's all full of muck now, but it was back then. I think it's been turned into a shop or something now. And he took me to the place where the Grey got booshed by the guy with the spade, Uncle Joe, who's died now. I think he must be dead by now. I know that. I think Robert Hall died a while ago. But interesting story. 20 years ago, Richard. I watched Richard's early works when he was like 20 years old. Oh, sorry, not 20 years old. 20 years ago. No, he was 30 something back then. But here we go. See, we're nearly at the other side now. You know, I was actually. You know, maybe if I get a chance, I'll go back to the place where the Gateshead Grey was. It'd be interesting to see that. Because it was almost dark when Richard and I went there, so it'll be like, it was really almost pitch dark. We could see it in daylight. Maybe I will show you where that happened. I do think that happened. I mean, there's if you look at the Gateshead Grey documentary Richard made, I mean, it's really quite. The guy Robert Hall, you know, he's a very good witness actually. There's some kind of ceremony going on here. I think this graduation day or something for the students. So something you often get. You see this all the time in Oxford, but in Newcastle they're doing the same. You see, I think they're all having a. Yep, they're all having a. They've all passed their exams, obviously. Anyway, I'm going to carry on along here and find somewhere to. I've been kicked out of the hotel. Well, not kicked out, but checkout time was noon, so I've left the hotel. I'm now going to find some kind of. Look at that! You can't get away from it, can you? Oh dear, the current thing. I can zoom in on that. See if I can zoom in. Anyway, it's the Ukrainian flag up there, of course. Look at that. Oh, look. Weatherspoon. The quayside. Whenever you see Weatherspoon, it's like a port in a storm. It's like an oasis in the desert. Colin, have you ever been to this one? I'm actually Colin Woolford now. Oh, well, hello everyone. I'm actually now with Maureen and Dawn who are here. And, oh. There's Maureen, you know Maureen, don't you? Yeah. And we just waited for for everyone to arrive, and in about 2 hours' time, I'm going to do. And here is this cat's got a very interesting name. Her name is WikiLeaks. Hello, WikiLeaks.
Hi everyone. Hi,
You remember Richard, don't you? He's on the show again. Yeah. How are you? All right?
Yeah, not too bad. How is everybody? Hope you're keeping tight. Looking forward to the talk on UFOs tonight.
It's going to be fun.
Brill.
Good to see you again, mate.
Yeah, good to see you, mate. Good to see you.
Welcome to True Seekers North East. Tonight we've got Ben Emlyn-Jones all the way from Oxford.
Hey. Oh, well, it's certainly. I think they're going to. Yeah, I think they're going to turn this into a test bed for something that's going to spread out across the entire country and even the world. But there's a lot of opposition to it.
So Ben's going to talk about UFOs tonight. What time we're having a break, Ben?
About an hour. Yeah, about 8ish. Just about
8 o'clock. So
I don't know how long exactly this is going to take, but the lead on.
But you know, you're free to make a cup of tea, do whatever you want. Boo, hiss.
Whatever you give me, whatever aggro you give me, I've had worse.
Oh, dear. Just off me picking you.
Oh, dear, that was a saga in itself.
I said, someone bloody yelling lines. Never mind, we're here. Safe and sound. I'll leave it to you, Ben.
Thanks, Maureen. Thank you very much. And thank you all of you for coming. I really appreciate it. It's great to see you all again. Some mostly familiar faces, a few new ones, and thank you very much, all of you, for coming. I miss you guys on my way actually, because there's nobody in Oxford like you guys. Although I have got in touch with a couple of people who hopefully will, are sort of kind of on that sort of wavelength. Thanks to the ravages of Oxford County Council, like you just heard, Oxfordshire County Council. Because well, I'm here for. You've got a double bill of me this weekend. I'm doing a talk this evening right now, and then tomorrow night at the same time I'm doing another one. Tomorrow night, of course, is when the world will end. Or will it? Well, you'll have to come back tomorrow to find out. But
Tomorrow afternoon, Ben.
yeah, is it afternoon?
It's afternoon.
Right, so it's not in the evening. Sorry about that. What time is it? What time is it? 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So right, I forget everything I said originally. Dave just corrected me. It's 2 o'clock. So come back tomorrow to find out how the world is going to end or might not end. But we're going to deal with something a bit more light-hearted, UFOs, which is something that is one of the subjects I'm into. Like Richard, this is a very important topic, which we investigate a lot. It's unlike a lot of people who are into UFOs. It's not the only thing I'm interested in. I mean, I get a bit frustrated actually with people who can see. They're so aware of the government cover-up of UFOs and the secrecy behind it and the sinister nature of that cover-up. And then you see him wearing a mask or saying, Ben, have you had the V word? I said, no, I haven't. Have you? Yeah, of course, I'm triple jabbed. Yeah, because this brings up a serious issue, because I've had people contacting me saying, with everything going on in the world, with the V word, this is going to go onto YouTube, so I can't say what it is. The V word and the C word and lockdowns and people dying suddenly, things like that, and barriers in the middle of the road and everything else. Who cares about aliens? What does it matter? You've got to put this on the back burner. Just put it to one side for now and deal with things that really matter on this earth. And forget about UFOs now. We can come back to those later. There's more important things we have to deal with right now. My answer to that is that no, there's not. UFOs are equally important to all those other things. I don't believe they should supersede everything else that's going on in the world because it's all connected. It's all connected. Dealing with UFO secrecy means dealing with the secrecy associated with everything else. These are like, it's like a house of cards, it's like dominoes. It's like a network, a web of lies. You take away one strand of the web, the rest of it will come apart. And in fact, excuse me, the fact that I believe that the secrecy surrounding the UFO topic is beginning to waver and weaken, I think is a symptom that the secrecy surrounding everything else is beginning to waver and weaken. Now, I believe 2016 was a very, very important year in the history of humanity, the Earth and this universe. 2016, just for a few months, the Illuminati, Deep State, whatever you want to call them, excuse me, I've got a... Dawn, what's it called?
You've got a call.
I've got a... Okay. A lurgy.
You've got the lurgy.
Don't use the C word.
Right, I won't, yes. I believe that just for a few months the Illuminati or Deep State completely lost control of the political structures of this world, just for a few months. I believe between sometime in the spring towards the end of the year they completely lost control of the entire establishment. And this resulted in chaos. It resulted in many things happening which they did not intend, which I've talked about in other times I've been here. But one of those didn't actually emerge in full for another 12 months, and that was the breakdown of the beginnings of the breakdown of UFO secrecy. We have here, this is a still from a very, very important press conference that took place in December. No, it actually was, I can't remember exactly when it took place, but it was around about December 2017, because it was in December 2017 there a unique newspaper article was published, written by Leslie Kane and Ralph Blumenthal, which was all about the fact that the government have been covering up the fact that we are not alone in this universe. There is an intelligence, a non-human intelligence, interacting with us on this planet. This news report went viral. Everyone remembers where they were when it happened. When that I was actually doing I was in a studio with Miles Johnston at the Basis Project, and I was doing like a talk with Colin Woolford. You can actually see it on the there's a video where we say, Miles interrupts, says, "Ben, Colin, have you heard? The New York Times has just published something saying UFOs are real." And we were like sitting there and we were like, what? And you can actually see our reaction. This took place either slightly before or slightly after that, but this press conference went viral shortly after the news report did. The guy on the left is called Tom DeLonge. He's the rock star, which you may know from Blink. What's it called?
182.
182. I can never remember the number.
Blink 182.
I'm getting too old. I can't remember these things. I should have asked my daughter. Blink 182. He's of course a famous rock star, but he's also the founder of the To the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences, which actually managed to get hold of some video showing what looks like official. Looked at the time, they didn't know where they came from originally. People thought they might be fake, but they were not. Videos taken of UFOs by the US Navy. There are 3 of them. There's many, many more that have not been published. Now, there's a row of people here. A very, very interesting number of people here. There's Chris Mellon at the far left there. Slightly to his right, politically and geographically, Luis Elizondo. Now he's a former official at the Department of Defense for the United States. And he has since quit his job, his very high-paid job at the Pentagon, and he's gone out into the world to rough it as a civilian ufologist. Another interesting guy, and this is going to raise a few eyebrows, I think, is the guy who's one from the right, who looks like Arsene
Wenger.
Yeah, Richard thought he looked like Arsene Wenger, former manager of Arsenal.
Don't tell us that.
No. It's not Nick Pope, no. Nick Pope's not quite that ugly. No, that's actually Hal Puthoff. Now, does anyone Recognise that name? Right. And you've got to go back a little bit in history, but it just goes to show how old and how long-lasting this conspiracy is, and how some people dedicated to it their entire lives to it, from being very, very young to old age. Hal Puthoff is famous for running he ran a psychic laboratory at the Stanford Research Institute in 1972, and he was a young lad from Israel called Uri Geller came in. You remember,
Spoonbender.
ringing in bells now. Yes, the spoonbender. Well, the thing is, like, Uri Geller, of course, is a stage magician. He's actually quite substandard stage magician. He has about 3 or 4 tricks, including the bending the spoons. Which anyway, you can do that using illusionists can do that quite easily. But the thing is, like, his real powers, I believe, were used covertly, and he's since admitted this, frankly. Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff investigated Uri Geller as part of their psychic experiments. Now, what happened was that it depends who you look at, because according to Bill Nye, the science guy, the skeptic, the project was cancelled because it didn't get any results. But I believe it went onto the black budget, and Geller has since confirmed that he was a remote viewer along with several other people, Ingo Swann, a couple of other individuals, for the CIA and for Mossad. There's a good documentary called Third Eye Spies, which I recommend. It's on YouTube now. It's a freebie now, so do watch that. Now, so Hal Puthoff is a member of the. In fact, he's actually one of only 2 of those guys left that are still in TTSA. Elizondo Mellon have left. The other guys, I can't remember who the others are. He's still there. But he's now involved in this, and this has raised a few eyebrows and made people wonder about what's really going on here. And I suppose you do have to ask yourself the question, what happened in 2017? Was this, some people have said, well, maybe this is not actually a real revelation from the inner workings of the UFO truth embargo. Maybe this is some kind of massive con, some kind of massive double bluff, some psyop. And there's some people who are utterly convinced that is the case. And to be honest, they might be right. This is why we have to be on our guard. At the same time, I've ruffled a few feathers. In fact, I've kind of been a bit on the bridge, being shot at from both sides, because I think that it's possible it's not. This could be a first step towards willing disclosure. Now, if that is the case, it's an opportunity we can't afford to miss, which means we've got to tread a narrow pathway between excessive cynicism and excessive naivety, in my view. So that's how we should address this particular topic. But since then, the whole issue of UFOs kind of expanded into it became much more popular than it ever had been, probably since the 1950s. It was a huge new UFO renaissance began, including some brand new researchers came on the scene. You know, I mean, we've seen some of them are really good. You know, not just Elizondo, but some amateur YouTubers like Christina Gomez and that UFO podcast. Are you familiar with any of these? Yeah. Richard, I know you are. Yeah, and so. This has gone from. It just goes through various cycles. There's some kind of revelation, then it goes away, then it comes back again, it goes away. There is positive movement forward, actually. And every time I think it's stagnating, something happens to reignite the whole situation. Now, for example, the government have released various documents. They've released what they call preliminary assessments from the organisation known as the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. It goes by various other names. It keeps changing its name. It then became UAPTF, the UAP Task Force. UAP just means UFO. It's because I think they use the term UAP because they don't want to be associated with the likes of us. They don't want to be. They want to sound more sensible than we are. But you know, the UFO believers, they actually use the term UFO enthusiasts. What they don't realise is that the term UFO was invented for the very same reason by the Robertson panel in 1952. they didn't want to be associated with the nutters who believed in flying saucers. They had to come up with an official scientific word. So they came up with UFO. And we culturally appropriated it, didn't we? And we're now culturally appropriating UAP, so they're going to have to think of something new now. They're going to have to come up with another word. Now these documents, most of them are pretty much worthless. They are brief and full of nothing more than superficial information. However, a classified annex was actually released with a lot of redactions in it last year, which was a bit more interesting. Not because of the information it had, but because it admitted there's a lot more information out there that they are keeping back for the time being. Now, normally they don't even do that. Normally governments don't even tell you they have information they're keeping away from you. They just don't tell you anything. In this case, they said, yes, here's a redacted version of the secret document that was presented to these various committees in Congress. We have other documents we're not telling you about right now. Now that could be, if they're just telling you they have other documents they have which they can't show you now, it could be an indicator that these will be declassified at some point. And as I said, if this is a step towards willing disclosure, we can't afford to miss this opportunity. We really, really can't. Now, this was delayed for a while. I remember people got very worried because there was supposed to be a UFO report was supposed to be released in Halloween last year. Just imagine the memes, Halloween UFO report. It wasn't. It was, and nobody explained anything at the Pentagon. Everyone was writing saying, because this thing just didn't appear when it was supposed to. Everyone has said, what's the problem? All the other documents have appeared when you said they're going to appear. So where's this one? And the DOD said nothing. Not even a no comment. They just didn't reply. Everyone thought they're just trying to make us forget about this. They're memory holding the whole thing. They're going to put the genie back in the bottle, and they're going to carry on saying UFO, UAP. Well, what UAP? And because they do that, don't they? They do just carry on. They try to rewrite history and pretend that things haven't happened. They do this all the time, and we were afraid that this was going to be the case until the 14th of this month, when it finally appeared. Just last week. Finally dropped, and do you know what it was like? It was 12 pages of nothing, basically. It had a few little weird sentences in, like it talked about balloon-like entities without really said balloons and balloon-like entities, and I thought, what does that mean? There were a few other weird phrases that almost seem like they're teasing us, but nothing of any significance. Another thing what made this rather what made the Halloween no-show rather even more sinister was at the very, very same time, literally just a couple of days before this document was due to be released and wasn't released, guess what happened? An article appeared in, I think it was the Washington Post. Was it Richard Julian Barnes? Do you know the one?
I can't remember.
No, I can't either. It was copied to several other publications. The original's behind a paywall, I know, and I'm not paying, what is it, £2.99 to read it. The original, I know what it says. Barnes was basically saying this was a kind of he said, oh, we've solved the mystery of what you saw in those famous videos. Guess what? These are Chinese drones, and they're plastic bags blowing in the breeze, and it's and swamp gas and weather balloons. It was literally so unoriginal, and it was so lacking in sincerity and conviction.
Probably got Bufora to write it.
Yes, it's Dave Clark loved it. Yeah. I'm going to say some nice things about Dave Clark in a minute, but yeah, basically this whole article was like Doug and Dave writing about swamp gas. It was that kind of thing. It was like mystery solved, go back to sleep kind of tone to it. And I thought, and then a couple of days later, this UAP assessment never appeared, and it was like, oh, what's going on? They're trying to make us forget about all this, and other people like Ross Coulthart were saying, oh, it's obviously because of the Ukraine situation. They decided to stop to halt the process temporarily because of the Ukraine situation. Steve Bassett said something similar. But then Dr. Travis Taylor, who was a UAPTF scientist, said, "Don't worry. It's just basically because there's been a big election in the US. There's been the midterm elections, which is rather like a UK general election. There's lots of new Congress people. They all have to be briefed in. They have to be, and everyone's on holiday because Christmas is coming and things like this. Don't worry. It'll appear, but it'll be late." It's just they can't get the personnel together to deal with it right now. Probably about January the 5th, he said. This is when he was on John Greenwald's The Black Vault a couple of months ago. Well, he was out by 6 days, so that's pretty good, I thought. That's pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah, it was January the 12th the damn thing dropped, wasn't it? Not the 14th, sorry, it was the 12th. Yeah. January the 12th, this assessment dropped. Then, and so this kind of, I'll come into another news story actually in a little while, which appeared literally hours after New Year, which is also very interesting, which indicates that, as I said, every time you think this has gone away, it comes back. But I'm pleased to say the mystery of the missing report has been solved now, and it's not as bad as we thought it was. So that's something. Now, earlier last year, something else happened, which makes me ask the question, it's not what it is, it's why now? This photograph, is this a photograph that was seen by nobody until a few months ago? But it's one of the most famous UFO photographs in history. This is the Calvine incident of 1990. It took place in Pitlochry, yeah, it's near the hotel was in Pitlochry. Yeah. What year? I think it was December, wasn't it? Yeah. It was December 1990. Two chefs from a hotel in Pitlochry, Scotland, near the edge of the Cairngorms National Park. They took a stroll in the up in the hills to get some fresh air, and rumour has it they were poaching, which is why it was one of the reasons they'd gone a bit quiet. They were on private property when they took this photograph, but and actually tracking down these witnesses is proving to be really difficult. But there's some people working on it, I know. They then heard a noise. They heard the noise of a jet aircraft. They looked up and they saw that's a RAF V-Star Harrier, an attack aircraft, just flying along. And we don't know. That's out of focus. So it's probably quite distant. But these guys, when they saw what was going on and they heard these noises, they hid behind some bushes. Eventually, one of them plucked up the courage to get out a camera and took 6 photographs. This is the best of them. But you see here is a diamond-shaped object. The witness describes it as being diamond-shaped.
Like a spinning top.
It's what, sorry?
Like a spinning top.
Well, it wasn't actually rotating, it was actually hovering, they said, and it was completely silent. I know some people have said, well, they couldn't tell because there was a noise from the jet aircraft. That was probably they were both making noise, but no, because the human ear is very good at detecting distance. And this was actually quite close. This was actually a close encounter of the second kind, or the first kind rather. Close encounter of the first kind. And they described this object as being silent and hovering, and it rose up very sharply into the zenith. It was a cloudy day. This was about 9 p.m. So it was, and at that time, basically it was just before dusk. So it flew up into the hills. I think this was summertime, wasn't it? This must have been summertime.
I can't remember what month it was. I thought it was like later in the year, sort of like sort of autumn time.
If it was 9 p.m. in Scotland, it was light. It was probably June. It was June, but it was just before dusk, and this flew up into this. It was quite cloudy. You can see it's quite cloudy sky. It flew up into the clouds and disappeared. When they reported this to the police called the Ministry of Defence UFO desk. This was before the days of the Great Pope. He wasn't in it there. He actually, I think, 92 he joined the UFO desk. This was a couple of years earlier, and they sent a guy called Craig Lindsay, who was an RAF press officer, to interview the 2 witnesses. And now, Mr. Lindsay took the film. He took the prints of the. They did make some prints of this photograph. This was the old days when film was real film. You know, anyone younger than me is going, "What's he talking about? What's he talking about?" Yeah, he used to actually put things in cameras and wind it on, and then you had to take it to the chemist and get it developed. They had several large prints made of these. This is one of them. This actually comes from one of the large prints. Now, Mr. Lindsay was informed that the witnesses were told not to say anything. A D notice was put on it, so the media couldn't report on it. And it's basically the story of it leaked out through ufological circles. However, Nick Pope had, he claimed, I mean, Nick Pope, he's not the most honest guy in the world. He claimed he had a large enlargement of it framed on his office wall during his time at the Ministry of Defence. It wasn't. It was actually a facsimile. It was a piece of artwork done based on the photograph. The only thing that actually managed to get was there was a very crude photocopy made that was circulated for a long time. And then amazingly, just a couple of months ago, the original ones resurfaced. The original photograph resurfaced after 22 years. Craig Lindsay, he enjoyed a long career in the RAF, and he was also in the civil services afterwards as a I forgot what his role was in the civil service. But he's now 82, and he basically contacted Dr. David Clarke, who is a ufologist. He's kind of taken over the old Nick Pope role. Nick Pope has come out with all kinds of stories about this photograph. He said, oh, it was lost. He had a copy that was lost when the removal men moved his office and things like this, and all kinds of stuff like that. He said that the picture, the fake picture, the artwork was not the one he had on his office wall. I don't know if you believe that. I think his royal popeness is somebody I question. He said a lot of lies about me, I'll put it that way, and some of my friends, so he's out of my good books, definitely, for that reason. And then Mr. Lindsay said, turns out, when the government confiscated all the film, the original negatives and the prints, they forgot one of them. It was left with Mr. Lindsay. This sort of thing does happen in ufology, incidentally. And 22 years later, it resurfaces. This sort of thing does happen. He kept it all those years in his house. And now he's 82 and he's grown up. All of his kids are grown up. He's got grandchildren, but he feels a lot more secure about his life now than he did. He doesn't have a lot to lose. He doesn't believe his family are in any danger. So he contacted Dr. David Clarke. And Clarke is a bit of a skeptopath. He's known as Dr. Folklore. I've met this guy a couple of times. But to give him his credit, he, like Clarke, was pretty good over this. He immediately came out and said, this is the best UFO photograph I've ever seen. So it's very well exposed, the object is very clear, you can see it. There's details on it. For example, it seems to have some structure here on the right hand point, things like that. Very, very good indeed, he said. And there's a lot of other people, you see. Some of the other skeptics were doubling down. I'll come on to some of those. Where is it? Here we go. Sorry, these are not quite in order, these slides. Dr. David Clarke, folklore and journalism. Normally I have a lot of aggravation for him. But anyway, now Clarke's been very honest over this. He says, yeah, I can't explain this image. He has said that there are only two possibilities. Either it's faked or it's some kind of secret aircraft. But he doesn't believe there's a third possibility, which I think is perfectly legitimate to suggest it, it is actually an artifact of non-human intelligence. I think there's nothing wrong with suggesting that. But he wrote this article here on his blog, The Calvine Photographs, MOD response to MP's questions. This is interesting. He contacted his MP, Louise Haigh. Louise Haigh is also the Shadow Transport Secretary. She contacted James Heapy, who's the Minister for the Armed Forces and Veterans. And he replied with a very, very interesting and rather contradictory phrase. Oh, what was it? Oh, actually, I want to get the exact quote. This is really quite extraordinary. Excuse me a moment, ladies and gents. Right, what was it? I'm just going to find out what the exact catchphrase was. Yeah, he said several things. He said, while we are aware that the existence or otherwise of a secret American Aurora aircraft. The Aurora is allegedly a spy plane. It's actually it's a spy plane built.
TL3B.
No, it's different. No, the Aurora is different. The Aurora is an aeroplane. It's the successor to the, you may have heard of the U-2 spy plane or the SR-71 Blackbird. These were secret in the early part of their careers when they were first designed. The U-2 was only known about when one was shot down over Russia in 1962. But there's allegedly another aircraft that's called the Aurora, which is far more sophisticated and is already in service today, operated by the CIA or the US Air Force. It's rumoured to fly out of RAF Machrihanish, which is actually in Argyll, Scotland.
It's on the Isle of the Mull of Kintyre.
The Mull of Kintyre Peninsula, that's right. So it's allegedly on the Kintyre Peninsula. But he said here, we are aware of the existence or otherwise of a secret American Aurora aircraft was linked to this alleged event, with a number of theories suggesting that this aircraft was allegedly seen. There's a bloody photograph of it. This is not a matter for the Ministry of Defence. Rather, it will be a matter for the US government. However, the UK government has given no authority for any such aircraft to fly over or land in the United Kingdom, and has no evidence to suggest that any such aircraft has. Okay, so it's not that. It's not a. Now that's a rather contradictory phrase. It's given no. He says it's a matter for the US Air Force, but the UK MOD has given no authority for such an aircraft to fly over the UK. So it's a very contradictory, nebulous phrase you just heard there from James Heapy, M and P. It doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense at all.
Considering the Americans owned Machrihanish.
It is partly used by the Americans. That's right. Yeah, it's one of the few American-run RAF bases left in the country following the end of the Cold War. But firstly, I mean, if it is, there's lots of questions to ask over that. Firstly, if it's the Aurora, it wouldn't. The Aurora is an aeroplane. So then Richard mentioned the TR-3B, which is not. The TR-3B is not an aeroplane. It achieves lift. The TR-3B is basically an anti-gravity spacecraft, which is alleged to exist. Yeah, it looks a black triangle. Some of the black triangle UFOs, not all of them, but some of the black triangle UFOs are this object, not an extraterrestrial object. It's built by the hand of man in our secret laboratories. But this object, the Aurora, is an aeroplane. It has to fly forward because it achieves lift through the aerofoil effect, like all aeroplanes. It has wings. It has an engine which makes noise. It can't hover. No conventional aircraft can hover apart from a helicopter, which again makes a lot of noise and has a rotor. Or an aerostat, that is a balloon, which has a big envelope. So it's none of that. It's not those things. So if it's the Aurora, the witnesses are all completely wrong about saying it was just hovering and it made no noise. Now Clark has just said, but nobody's interviewed the witnesses. It's second-hand information. We should only deal with first-hand information. And the point he's making is a good one, in a way, because yeah, the ideal thing would be to talk directly to the witnesses rather than just getting second-hand reports from other people who've allegedly spoken to them, which is Craig Lindsay and a couple of other people. But so, if they're watching, by the way, if any of you are watching, witnesses to this event, get in touch with me, bennyj74@gmx.co.uk. I'd love to hear from you. However, Clark is wrong just simply to dismiss second-hand testimony like as apocryphal without any real reason to do so. Just to say, well, because it's not first-hand testimony, we just ignore it. We just ignore it. I think that's wrong as well. But it's, Clark. It gets a lot worse actually, because there's a guy called Wim van Utrecht who is a Belgian ufologist who he claims to have solved this mystery. He solved it. He's worked it out. Do you know what it is, right? This thing. That's actually a Christmas decoration. He's found it. He's found a silver star thing you put on a Christmas tree. You hang from something. And they put it on their side, they hung it from a tree. And they put it on its side, and then they photographed it. And that's what you saw there. Now he's simply said that, he's literally said that's the case. Wim van Utrecht. He's very confident he solved it. Now, and the problem is, no evidence. We don't let that put us off. I don't think some people don't let that put it off. That is no evidence that this is the case. Now, how many of you were here when I did my skeptic talk? I think most of you, weren't you? Yeah. Do you remember me talking about the clown's day off fallacy? Oh, right. I'll reiterate what it was. The clown's day off fallacy is what is posited. A lot of skeptics do this, which states that any explanation which does not involve aliens should always be prioritised, regardless of how baseless it is. And conversely, any explanation that does involve aliens should be handicapped and relegated and even ignored, just regardless of how much evidence there is for it being real. Which means that really explaining away these kinds of incidents becomes an exercise of the imagination. A skeptic doesn't need any evidence, he doesn't need any witness testimony, any investigation at all. He just thinks of something. You know, it's like, I call it the clown's day off fallacy, because technically, if you're walking by the side of Loch Ness and you saw a monster stick its head up, you could go and tell a skeptic, and a skeptic will say, no, that was a trick played on you by a clown with a day off from the circus. And you say, well, which clown, what circus, what are you talking about? I don't know which clown, I don't know what circus, but which is more likely? And it wins by, see, the non-monster explanation wins by default because it doesn't involve monsters. Through some principle the skeptic never explains. And that's what we're looking at here from Wim van Utrecht. Well, Wim van Utrecht is committing the ultimate clown's day off fallacy. He's literally he's invented an explanation, and he's positing it as the solution to this mystery without any evidence at all. So, funny enough, Clark made this statement saying, well, there we are then, there's only two possibilities. It's either fake or it's a real secret aircraft. Now, I don't think it's, I doubt if it could be a man-made aircraft, it may not be alien, but if it is, it's not an aeroplane, it's not the Aurora. It's something similar like the TR-3B, something anti-gravity. It's probably foreign. I mean, if it was one of ours, for instance, if it was built by the UK government, they wouldn't be flying it around at low altitudes in the Highlands of Scotland. I mean, it's a long way from RAF Machrihanish if you look at it on a map. Calvine is a long way from Machrihanish. What's it doing flying around in the Cairngorm Mountains? If it's in my view, it'll be foreign if it's man-made. Although this was after the Cold War, really, but Russia was really not in a state to do anything like this in terms of like this kind of espionage, because it was dealing with its own domestic problems. At that time, it was transitioning from the Soviet Union into the modern Russia at that time, and it was not in any state to fly strange aircraft, regardless of how sophisticated they were. They invented in secret laboratories over Scotland. These. Today, probably, I bet you today was Russian. I mean, Russians get blamed for everything today, don't they? Everything from aliens to Zika virus, blame the Russians. But now there's a reason. There's a reason why maybe I'll discuss this with some of you privately. I can't talk about it publicly, but I think there's an actual reason why Dr. Clark is so fixated on this secret aircraft explanation, because I've come across some information. Someone approached me privately at a conference and gave me some information that makes me understand why Clark is so convinced that this is some kind of aircraft, some kind of secret aircraft. It's an interesting story. I mean, there'll be some updates on this, I'm sure. Now, this is Jacques Vallée. He's co-authored a book with Paula Harris called Trinity. What's the full title? Trinity. It looks interesting. I've not read it yet, but it refers to the term Trinity refers to the Trinity experiment, which is when the first atomic bomb was detonated in 1945. Now, there was allegedly, according to Harris and Vallée, there was allegedly a Roswell-like incident near where that took place. This was more than 2 years before the Roswell incident of July 1947. And funnily enough, the investigation period that the Arrow, that's the latest incarnation of the UAPTF, recently they pushed in their reports, these are the classified reports going to Congress, they recently pushed back the report 2 years, because originally they were going to they were originally going to deal with every single incident from the beginning of Project Sign, which was in 1947. They've now put it back 2 years to 1945 after that book was published, which means it could be the government are taking this seriously. Jacques Vallée is a veteran ufologist. He's now pretty elderly. He's been doing this his whole life. He was the inspiration for the Buffon character in Close Encounters, the French guy in the film Close Encounters of the Third Kind by Steven Spielberg. He wrote a book called Passport to Magonia, which is very interesting. Very prolific author. And he's still going strong now, and he's 80 something, still going strong, so good for him. The reason I've mentioned this now is it's not necessarily the book he wrote, it's the fact that literally just a couple of weeks before the UAPTF report finally appeared, the Daily Mail, of all things, did an article about this was literally hours after the New Year. This was literally January the 1st, New Year's Day. An article that had appeared in the Daily Mail, which is an interview with him and Paula and several of the witnesses that appear in the book. And I had just literally put a video. I don't know those of you who follow me on YouTube will know this. I'd literally just uploaded a video hours earlier called "So Is That It?" about the UFO issue, meaning is that it? Is it all over? Bringing up the points I made at the beginning. And then this article appears in the Daily Fail, which is so much better than most articles on UFOs. It was really quite extraordinary. It really, really was. Going into this, I thought that's incredible. That's incredible. Now, this is an incredible image. Now, this came to my attention. This is not directly related to this process I've been talking about. This succession of events in the modern era. This is something much older, but I'm going to bring it up because I think it's very, very relevant. What would happen if you saw that? Well, if you looked up in the sky and you saw that one early morning, what would you think?
I need to lay off the pot.
Yeah. You ever seen anything like that? That's a real flying. Would you say it's a real flying saucer? It's a balloon.
It looks like a balloon.
Yeah. You can actually see the gondola underneath.
It's a bit like Gulf Breeze, doesn't it?
It does look very like the Gulf Breeze flying saucer. Yeah. This was. We're going back a long way now. We're going back to the 1st of April 1989. When else the 1st of April? Richard Branson, of all people, who you know is keen on balloons. He's a very keen balloonist. He had a special balloon made to look like a flying saucer. It's not only flying saucer shaped. It has lights all over it, so it looks like the mothership from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It was built by Cameron Balloons of Bristol. He had it built in secret by this company. And at 4 AM he launched from a secret location in a farmer's field in Surrey. And the idea was that he would land in Hyde Park a few hours later. And it would be amazing it would look like a flying saucer landing in the middle of the city of London. And now he couldn't land exactly where he wanted to. He had to land in another field outside London because the wind changed direction. But he did land, and when he landed, the people were calling the police. I mean, the army was put on alert. Radio stations were reporting there's a flying saucer over London. Cars were stopping on the M25, and the drivers were like looking up, like Roy Neary, the Richard Dreyfuss's character in Close Encounters, were going like that, you know. And all hell broke loose, and then this thing came down the field. The police surrounded it. It was literally a Close Encounters-like situation. And then a man got out of the gondola. The gondola was like enclosed and full of dry ice. It was deliberately designed for this effect. And this ramp came down, and lots of dry ice vapour flooded out. You know, really spooky like. There were lots of like really weird lights and things like that. And this little man came out dressed as a Hollywood alien. And I think the police then had a big laugh about the whole thing. And you see, this is obviously it was a publicity stunt by Richard Branson. He's very good at that sort of thing. He's quite an eccentric. But I'm sure Branson himself is not involved in this. You can bet that certain people would have used this opportunistically, not deliberately, but opportunistically, to monitor the public reaction to this happening. You can bet that people like the Tavistock Institute, Common Purpose, these various organisations, that these public opinion gazing organisations, these psychological think tanks, as they call them, things like that. You can absolutely bet they were watching every single news article. They were reading every single news article on paper. They were reading all the letters, listening to all the phone calls, judging the public reaction to this event. Because Richard Branson inadvertently set up the conditions of an experiment, a social experiment. Because they for some reason, psychological warfare institutions, as I call them, like the Tavistock Institute, are very interested on how we view UFOs and how we view aliens, and what would happen if very decisive evidence of alien life appeared in our skies. Now, why? Why are they so keen on this? Because we're talking about something that essentially doesn't exist outside science fiction, according to the official stories. Because I think either they're planning to, I mean, the fake alien invasion scenario, which I've talked about before, either they're planning some kind of fake alien invasion scenario, or they are very well aware at the highest levels that we are not alone, and that we are being visited by a non-human intelligence that does not originate on planet Earth. And they know also that the government is covering that up, is suppressing that information. And they also know that the suppression of that information is essential to the maintenance of the world order. And the loss of this secrecy would be catastrophic. It's one of the pillars that holds up the regime we live under. Which means that should this secrecy ever fail, genuinely fail, I know people say it's a psyop, there's fake alien invasion, stuff like this, fake disclosure, which I've talked about this many times, and I agree we have to be on our guard against things like that. But should this secrecy fail for whatever reason, it is essentially a finish line moment. It is literally, I think, if ever there's some kind of incident where there is full disclosure and it's real and verified, I think we can say mission accomplished, and the rest is basically just a mopping up exercise. That includes all the other things that we deal with in our lives: government imposition, CCTV, bollards in the roads, forced medication. All that will come down as well. But this is why I'm bringing this subject up now. This seems like a frivolous, very abstract thing to go into when you think about everything else we're facing right now, but it's not. And I hope I've made you understand why it is not, and why it is so important that we monitor what's going on. It's so important we follow this, we examine it, we spread the word about this, and in time, this could be just the first domino where the others inevitably fall. And I'd like to thank you for your attention. We can have a little break. That's the end of my little lead off. But I look forward to your questions and comments after we've had a cup of tea and other things. So don't go far.
Thank you. Cup of tea? Yes, please.
That's great.
Didn't bring it. Ben didn't bring any books with him today.
Sorry, yeah.
He is an author, and he has wrote how many books now? Three?
5.
5?
I've written 5, yeah. And I'm working on I've got an internet serial.
Trilogy.
Yeah. That's the Roswell trilogy, so
Yeah.
I'll be advertising for you. Just instantly, I was going to say a few words more.
Yes? Part 2.
When I walked out of the house yesterday morning, I just thought, I've forgotten something. I know I've forgotten something. But I had. I was going to bring some of my books to sell, and I haven't, and I'm sorry about that. But so I know some of you already have copies. If you don't, let me know, and I will get you all I need is your address, and I'll send you a signed copy, and I'll pay postage and packing. Okay, if you want a signed copy from me, just let me know, and I'll send you one. If I for any reason I don't, just harass me until I do. All right, it's just £10. All right, I'll pay postage and packing. So sorry about that, but I normally have like a stall of them. But the Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure. Now this book is interesting. If you found the talk I just gave interesting, or in fact, if you find any of the events that Truth Seekers Northeast hosts interesting, then I think you'll like this book, because even though it's a story, it's just imaginary, it's a novel, it's about, it explores the question, what would happen if we got the truth instead of the lies? And you have to think about that for a while, but this led to, there's 2 sequels as well, Roswell Revealed, Roswell Deep, it's the Roswell trilogy, so just let me know and I'll be in touch with you. Just come to me privately, I'll tell you. So, someone's actually asked me to ask this of you, first of all, so I'm going to ask the first question and you've got to provide the answers. Have any of you had a close encounter? Yeah, do you want to talk about it?
Well, I've had several.
All right. What are your close encounters like?
Well, when I was a child, I didn't realise that there were not supposed to be UFOs. Of course, I didn't think of them as UFOs. I used to sit on the dining room windowsill and watch the sky, and I used to see them, but I thought it was a bit like me going to see my grandma on the bus, going to visit somebody. I just thought they were visiting each other. And I'm trying to remember what my first encounter was, because I've had a few. But I used to have to walk up to a bus stop about 20 minutes from my house to go to work, and I always knew when there was a UFO there, because I used to get in my head. And I used to look up, and sure enough, there would be a UFO, and it would be shaped a bit like a light bulb, and it would follow me, and I'd get on the bus, and I'd get off the other end, and it would follow me until I went into the hospital. That happened, that went on for months.
Did anyone else on the bus see what you saw?
I've no idea.
Does anyone else had a, that's interesting, thanks for sharing that. Does anyone else had a similar, Dave?
David.
Yeah,
Me and David, same time.
1975, you know, I was kind of last year at school. I used to walk up the road from school with the neighbour, walking up the road. This was there was fields, full of fields there then. I noticed this light right across in the fields, and it was like slowly moving, almost like mirroring our speed going up the road. And I mentioned it to the neighbour, but of course he was a skeptic type thing, and I can't remember if we had tea first when we got in. Anyway, I came out and the light was still right over in the fields, and it was hanging around for over 3 hours. And then as I watched it, as it got darker, at quite a few points this light just like got brighter, and it was like almost like a beam, a searchlight beam got flashed brighter. You know. So there was some intelligence behind it. But this was 1975, this is, you know, pre-police helicopters and all that, right?
Certainly pre-drones and Chinese lanterns, yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't been around in those days, but it was there for at least over 3-4 hours. And we went up the road down this long path.
That was 3
past the
of it.
ford.
You saw it too, Trish?
Yeah, I was with it in the neighbour. That was 3 of it.
Trish is Dave's sister. And you, so these 2 people both saw it together. That's very interesting.
Well, yeah, like where we lived further up, that's like this little this is where people live, just called New York. It's only like a little village, and beyond that, that was like country lanes. Actually, it was just all fields, and we watched it. It was pitch black, wasn't it, David? By that time, it was pitch black.
Was that over towards Merton?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
These things
Well,
are...
8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. And
Thanks for sharing that. That's interesting.
the neighbour got frightened, and the neighbour got frightened, and he went back home.
Did you see it as well?
Yeah, but I don't think he wanted to, you know.
A lot of people don't want to talk about it. I mean,
it was really low, so it wasn't a plane, it was too low.
I'm guessing you guys don't tell everyone about this. You don't tell everyone you meet.
First time they've mentioned it to me.
Right. You see,
I told me mum and dad, they just thought it was just me, you know.
most people who have these experiences
It was scary, like.
are careful about who they talk to. I mean, but they are common. They're more common than most people think. A lot of people don't tell anyone. Interestingly, there's a new film being made about this subject, the abduction of Betty and Barney Hill in 1961.
I met their niece.
Yeah, Kathleen Marden. I met her too. She's lovely.
Yeah, we met you.
Yeah, she was at UFO TruthCon magazine. Yeah, it's this was the first. Yeah, it was great. It was great, wasn't it? This is the first officially recorded or officially publicised alien abduction case, which actually popularised the idea of alien abduction. But in no way was it the first ever. There were many. From all we can gather, this experience it seems to be a perennial human experience. It probably goes back to prehistoric times. Betty and Barney Hill were the first to be widely publicised. There's a new film coming out about Betty and Barney Hill, produced by none other than Barack Obama, of all people. So let's see what this is like.
Sorry, say that again.
Barack Obama is
Producing a film about Betty and Barney.
Amazingly, yes. I've written an article about it. But Bryce Zabel has also written a script which he's trying to get optioned as well for the whole thing. So
looks like I picked the wrong week to give up sniffing glue.
I raised a few eyebrows on nice and maybe reach for the gin and tonic. I'll tell you. But does anyone else have any comments or questions? Oh, Dawn, oh yeah.
Well, what's happening with the Capel Green film? Have you heard of it?
The Cable Green is an active project still, and it is. I know a lot of people. It sounds a bit incredulous considering how long it's taken.
We saw
But
it with the trailer years ago.
well, look how long have we waited for the Avatar sequel?
Oh.
It's been like 16 years, and yeah, we waiting for the Avatar sequel. It's just come out. I haven't seen it.
I heard it's because of Larry Warren's artistic temperament.
You see, a lot of this came up when I went to the Outer Limits magazine conference in Hull. There was a lot of enormous cynicism about Cable Green. They say they speculated it had been cancelled because of the factual nature of Larry Warren's testimony. That's not true. It's still an active project. I'm hoping it'll come out this year, like I hope every year. But I'm in touch with people on the inside, and I can assure you, they're still working on it. And really, these wheels often turn very slowly in the world of cinema. It's because it is a high quality production, and the project has expanded from where it originally started.
What's the director called again?
Dion Johnson, yeah. He's an Australian director called Dion Johnson. I'm in touch with him. He's still working on it. So let's. Dave, you want to say something?
Yeah, just going back to what you're actually talking about, the whole disclosure thing and why. And I mean, what we're getting is a whitewash, soft disclosure thing, which because this had appeared in the UFO movement and other various groups. It talked about there was some kind of disagreement. They wanted full disclosure, and they said. People, generally people just couldn't take it, right? As though we're some kind of school children, like it's long overdue. But I think the reason why they're still trying to keep a lid on the whole UFO thing is because there's a battle that's been raging on this planet between ET races and humans.
Yeah, I'm actually going to come back to this topic about a secret war going on. I'm going to come back to that tomorrow afternoon, because that's going to be in my talk tomorrow afternoon. There's going to be a theme of
Don't miss tomorrow.
Tomorrow afternoon, yeah.
Yeah, don't miss tomorrow.
Oh yeah, do come back tomorrow, because I think you will enjoy tomorrow's talk. But there's definitely not unanimity within various power structures within this world. If there was, we wouldn't have this almost panicked reaction to the 2016 effect. You've seen from the bad guys. Our enemies are literally dashing for the finish line now. They're trying to cram 50 years of New World Order reforms into half a decade. They're taking extraordinary risks. Now, I heard a lot of people say, well, they've got nothing to be scared of, they're all powerful. Indeed, they do act like they are all powerful, as Sun Tzu said in The Art of War. Appear strong even when you're weak. But if they're not scared of that, what are they scared of then? Because they're scared of something. So, and of course, I believe that the December 2017 revelations and everything that I've talked about in my lead off is a product of that. I believe that it has emerged directly out of that breakdown of the hold. That the iron hand lost its grip, and these things basically escaped. And the battle to get the genie back in the bottle has not been very successful. So yeah, I mean, there is something apocalyptic about what we're going through right now. This period we're going through. Yeah, thanks, Dave. Yeah, Richard.
Sorry, this is a big one.
Go for it.
Right. Okay. So
Hit me.
Not
literally.
In 2015, I totally became disillusioned with ufology.
I noticed you kind of drifted away from it.
It was very quiet, like you said, and then all of a sudden, it came back with a bit of a bang.
Yeah.
And from what I see, it's puppets on a string. Now, what do you think changed between? We can't tell the people. They mustn't know. We've got to cover it up. And there was a massive cover-up, and all for years and years and years. There was a huge cover-up. Now, what's changed for them to have this? And I keep using the term woke-tard, but I think UAP is a factor of wokeism, and it's just another way of, you said it yourself, spinning the narrative, controlling the narrative. You've got people like Tom DeLonge, who to me is just another puppet on a string. He's being controlled by somebody and for a reason. Now, I became disillusioned with ufology because the same old stuff was coming round again. Oh, Rendlesham Forest, oh, the Betty and Barney Hill case, oh, the Betty Cash case. And it just comes round again and gets retold in a different fashion. The way you see Nick Pope on every Blaze bloody documentary that is. Yeah. Nick Pope talking about Rendlesham, Nick Pope talking about the Calvin case, Nick Pope talking about... Now, what do you think's changed between like I say, the Condon report and the Robertson report and now? Yeah. Why has that narrative changed so much? And this is what put us off the fact that it was becoming a woke thing to talk about. They changed the UFO term to UAP because it was a bit more respectable, and it just seems it seems the whole UFO rhetoric is cyclical. It'll come back again, but in a different form, just to hike more people in, and for people like Nick Pope to make money out of. But at the same time, it's being controlled for a very different narrative now. But I'm asking you, what do you think that narrative is?
It's a good question, because you mentioned that the cover-up and this cover-up and how long it lasted. It lasted in a singular form for 70 years and 5 months. And the reason I can time that so precisely is it was the period between the writing of the Cutler-Twining memo in July of 1947 and the publication of the New York Times article by Kane and Blumenthal in December 2017. That's a period of 70 years and 5 months. Literally within that time period, there was almost no wavering at all of this agenda, of the response to this agenda. And it was international. It appears every nation state on earth was obeying a global policy when it came to this. Look at Virginia. Look how they simply fell into line behind the Americans.
But is it a global or is it a universal?
Universal, maybe. I mean, that's a good point.
It sounds to me like they're under threat.
Yeah, I'll come to that in a minute. I'll come to that in a moment. But if these are people like DeLonge, I mean, Tom DeLonge, I think, you know, if I was making a movie of this, it would be a bad piece of casting to put Tom DeLonge there. He's not. Okay, he's not the ideal spokesman, is he?
I just thought he was someone the sort of younger generation could relate to, and like, oh well, if Tom DeLonge's saying it, it's kind of, you know, there must be something to it. And for me, the appearance of Tom DeLonge just said, this is going to go round again in just a different form and fashion.
Well, a lot of people
have done a little bit from this and that and the other, and we've done this and we've done that, but like you say, it's a whole bunch of nothing.
Did you find? If you found some of the things we were coming into, because I was sharing this experience with you in the first half of the last decade, it was getting rather repetitive. We were coming. Conferences would have speakers talking about the same things over and over again, things like that. And the conferences were basically just a social gathering more than anything else. But if this is, a lot of people have said that this is just a rehash. I mean, for example, a researcher once claimed that a little while ago that this is a rehash of the Dr. Stephen Greer and the Disclosure Project. That all the tropes that were in Greer when he first came out in the late 90s.
So again, it seems like they put everything out around about every decade, just to keep it. Like I say, it's almost like post-hypnotic suggestion, the way they do it.
We saw like Tom DeLonge on a stage. I mean, some people saw Tom DeLonge on a stage with Lou Elizondo, how put off are they? And one look at that was enough to convince some people that that's exactly what's going on. I mean, Richard D. Hall, let's face it, the guy who goes to sleep every night thinking there are MI5 agents under his bed, doesn't he?
Well, you're not Richard or
he's given enough criticism, he can take some.
Oh, I love Richard.
Yeah, I do too, I do as well, but I mean, he's not above criticism, even though he thinks he is. And he criticises people. He doesn't hesitate to criticise people. But yeah, someone for him, someone like Elizondo.
One eye open
Believe none of what you hear, only half of what you see. For someone like Richard, Elizondo is red meat. He's formed ex-CIA, Department of Defence. I think Richard probably decided that Elizondo was a shill within 10 seconds of hearing his name. And, he could be right. All these people could be right. What you just said could be true. This could simply be some massive confidence trick. And we must be on our guard. We have to be on our guard about this.
It just seems like with the advent of video phones and stuff like that, there was so much coming out that they just had to rehash it in a different way where they couldn't deny it anymore, but they're neither confirming nor denying it because that's still the United States.
Well, you've got to ask the question is why did, seeing as this policy that was in place for so long, as I just said, an entire human lifetime, this policy was in place. Why did it change so suddenly in one instant? I mean, this entire policy, this policy that had been unanimously agreed on since with the Cutler-Twining memo. This was what it was: official ridicule and denial. Well, basically, to paraphrase, we know these things are real. We can't let the public know this. So through official ridicule and denial, we will make them believe that these things are just nonsense. It's just a joke. And that was written in July 1947, but it could refer to a news story in 2015. Where they play the X-Files theme music and the newsreader sort of sitting there talking about the UFO, and some idiot above the frame dangles a toy flying saucer around his head, and everyone goes ha ha ha, and they have a big laugh. Cut to credits. Here's Tom with the weather. Why did that policy change? Why did it change so suddenly?
It was on the front page. I know it's a shit paper, but it was on the front page of the Sun just the other day. It's incredible how the profile of this now. Even it is just a massive. If it is a massive confidence trick, and it is just they're just fooling us again. Why are they fooling us so suddenly? They're putting so much effort into it. I mean, it could be a distraction from everything else that's going on. Yeah. Here, look at this nonsense.
He hasn't done a very good job because, if anything, it's rather like this. It's rather like the people who say Bob Lazar's a distraction from Area 51. Bob Lazar was put out there to make sure no one ever paid any attention to Area 51. And now it hasn't worked very well, has it?
Now he's got a Netflix film.
Yeah.
You see, that's what I mean about the narrative, right? Bob Lazar was debunked, now he's got a Netflix film. What's happened in between that?
Well, he was allegedly debunked, I'm not sure. But
well, that's what I mean, he was an object of ridicule, yeah. He couldn't show his face, and now he's got a Netflix film. Yeah. What's changed in that time?
Well, if I was in charge of Area 51, I'd be cursing Bob Lazar's name, because there was a wonderful secret base we once had. Now everyone knows about it, and it's on the Las Vegas tourist trail, thanks to Bob Lazar. Dawn, hey.
Can I make a point about Bob Lazar?
Yeah.
There's a YouTube channel called the Body Language Behaviour Panel.
Yeah.
And they studied the Bob Lazar interview, and I think they're pretty convinced that he was telling the truth about everything in that interview.
I've not made my mind up about that guy.
These are people who work for the military and the...
I've not made my mind up about that guy, to be honest.
What about Travis Walton?
Oh, that was Travis is like another very famous abductee, and there's been every so often. I mean, in fact, I say every so often. This has been going on ever since he had his experience and reported it. But every so often, it comes. It's sort of like flares back up again, even though it's never gone away. But he made the whole thing up.
He didn't.
He didn't. No. He didn't. No, I'm not saying he made that. I'm saying that this always comes up saying he made the whole thing. He didn't. I don't think he did.
No.
He didn't make it up. But every so often people claim he did.
The guy had a proton collider in his back garden that he built himself.
Bob Lazar?
Yeah, of course. He was a bloody genius.
So we moved on to Travis Morton, Richard, but thanks. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, 2 tracks, yes, sir.
What's your thoughts on like aliens helping like ancient structures like the pyramids and did the aliens have helped?
There's absolutely no doubt that.
Because they can't build them now.
Well, exactly. Well, there's absolutely no doubt that those structures were built by individuals with an ability beyond what they've been credited with. For example, the pyramids of Egypt were apparently built at a time when the ancient Egyptians had yet to invent the wheel, the pulley, or the lever. Yet they hand carved these stones, these big blocks. 3 million of them, rolled them across the desert and on rollers, and just somehow managed to put them in the right place and within the structure of the pyramids. And it's a structure built with the perfection we use for surgical instruments, rather than architects today don't use that much precision. And you've got to ask the question: well, were they really primitive people who didn't have this who didn't even have basic technology? Or were they actually far more sophisticated? Now, the only possibility is either history's badly underestimated the builders of those structures, or they did receive help from other beings from elsewhere. Now, Eric von Daniken, this is his bailiwick, and he did. I don't know how many of you were in Blackpool last year when he appeared. He did an appearance in Blackpool at the Awakenings conference there, and it was remarkable to see him. I've read 2 of his books, and Giorgio Tsoukalos was there as well. His sort of protege who presents the Ancient Aliens program. I mean, I couldn't help thinking there's something slightly misanthropic about his ideas, because he seems to be running down humans a little bit, saying, well, humans couldn't possibly do this, we must have had help from aliens, rather than saying, well, humans can do this sort of thing. And indeed, history is underestimated. We were actually far greater and more capable a species than history has given us credit for. We could piss with the big boys in the universe.
I think it's builder races, isn't it?
I think that's more likely than it being aliens.
An ancient civilization.
However, exactly. However, there's so many legends, and von Daniken does talk about this, and he's right. Of open contact between extraterrestrials and humans in the distant past, in prehistory. We know there's the Dogon tribe in Africa who know about Sirius B, the star which is invisible to the naked eye. There's legends across the world of visitation by alien overlords, and even interbreeding, the creation of a hybrid bloodline, which continues to the present day among the elite families of the world.
Well, there's Aborigines talk about the dream time.
Yeah. Exactly. This is universal archetype that goes across. I'll be talking more about universal archetypes tomorrow afternoon. This is one of them. Little teaser there for you.
Here's a tangent just on the ancient aliens question. Us being readers, why do we wear clothes?
Well, we don't. We don't. I mean, we do especially keep.
What other animal in its own environment wears clothes?
We make clothes. Not every human does. In the Amazon jungle, where there's plenty of shade, it's warm and there's plenty of shade from the sun, they don't wear clothes.
Don't worry, I'm not taking my clothes off. Don't worry.
The reason is, I think that
got to pay extra for that.
We wear clothes to keep ourselves warm primarily. In this climate, we don't, because we don't have body fur. Most people don't anyway. A few X-ray pores.
That's what I mean. So if we evolved in the situation that we did, this is where I think our DNA has been manipulated. We have been visited, and I mean, chimpanzees are still chimpanzees. Our chromosomes mirror that of a chimpanzee, but we've got fused chromosomes. Nothing else on the planet has them.
Yeah. So. We have not something else which is unique to us. We walk upright. Now there are other apes that walk upright, and Bigfoot, I believe, exists. And there were creatures in the past very like Bigfoot, which no one denies exists. But they had the fur all over their bodies, where we only have it in a few places, like on our head. Well, I don't even have it there. But most other people have some on top of their heads. But our skin is, we have a layer of subcutaneous fat. Our skin is actually much more like that of a pig than an ape. We also have noses, we have this unique nose which with nostrils pointing downwards. That indicates that we've evolved to submerge our head underwater to shallow depths. And you can, you see. Chimpanzees crossing a river are very careful not to get their head underwater, because if they fall in and their head goes under, their airway will immediately flood, because then their nostrils point forwards. Ours point downwards, indicates we can trap an air bubble in our upper airway, which so our airway doesn't immediately flood when we go underwater. Obviously, this doesn't mean we're aquatic. We're not like whales and dolphins or seals and things like that, and penguins. But it does allow us a limited aquatic ability. So where did that come from? Where's the missing link? Even Charles Darwin admitted that his theories were incomplete. He called it the missing link.
He said it was just theory.
Sorry?
And he said it was just theory.
Yes, he said it was incomplete.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah.
I mean, it kind of evolution, let's say, stacks up for a few things when you look at kind of natural processes, but certainly doesn't stack up for humans when you look at the chromosomes, the clones.
Yeah, evolution hasn't been even.
No.
I mean, was it 1600 BC? There was virtually no humanity left on Earth. So how did we suddenly flourish again? Where did we go?
Well, you see, people who have encounters, we talked about encounters. Some of the creatures people encounter look very much like us. Some of them, if you pass them in the street, you wouldn't really give them. You may give them think that person looks a bit odd, but you wouldn't think they were alien. Makes you wonder if some of them are. Maybe some people we think of people walking around today are. In fact, I've met a couple of people who claim to be at least partly extraterrestrial, and they presented me with evidence of that.
Yeah.
One woman allowed me to feel her head, and you can see her skull. She has a cloven skull, which is something that humans don't have. In other words, there's like a gap. Her skull is in two halves, and there's like a little narrow gap here in between.
So she said she was an alien?
Yeah, she said she was. She said she's a hybrid.
Oh, that's not even like a Paracas skull, that.
It's
You
very
didn't go further than Mike Oram.
Yeah, Mike Oram.
His story's fantastic.
I love his book. Yeah. Dave.
According to Alex Collier, because he goes back a long way and he talks about ET races and that. He says that the humanoid form is the most prevalent in the universe.
Yes,
that's the two arms, the two legs, and so on.
It's a bold claim.
Even though there is supposed to be some quite weird shapes and things, this is the most common form.
If you look at reports, like people who encounter aliens and what they report, there is convergence on certain forms, and there is virtually a taxonomy now of creatures, of beings that are seen now by people. The greys in various forms. There's the Nordics, mantids, little blue creatures, and other things that the tulip heads, Mike Oram sees. There's hundreds of species, and what's more, people from all over the world who don't know each other and come from very different cultures report the same beings.
Didn't Clifford Stone say there was 57 varieties of species visiting Earth at any one time?
I think those are beans. But yeah, he's talking
I'm
about
sure it
beans.
was the 57 varieties. Yeah.
But
you see tulip heads in storybooks, fairy books.
Yeah, I think that people saw these before the days when alien abduction was like commonplace, like pre-Betty and Barney Hill, and they interpreted it as, they called them fairy folk, the gnomes, trolls, otherworldly beings. Maureen.
What about Valiant Thor?
But there's photographs of him, and the other people, the other aliens. Frank Strangers wrote a book about this. Valiant Thor and his and the other aliens that are in the photographs have never been traced. According to Strangers, he was he did land. He did go and confer with the government officials. There was even this book, The Day the Earth Stood Still, the film, The Day the Earth Stood Still, very good film, which is about this particular, which is based on this particular legend, so-called.
But then it comes because of the environmental impact we're making, right?
Well, it's a great film because the Klaatu, the alien, is like, he essentially threatens humans and saying, you're a liability in the universe, and you've got to back your ideas up or we'll get rid of you. Because you go ground into ash, I think was the term he used for the
Yeah, now that film was funded by CIA, which goes towards the narrative that humans are bad, creating global warming, we need to depopulate it.
Oh, that's a very, very common theme today, isn't it? Yes. I mean, there's a lot of dark propaganda making us wanting to hate ourselves, especially if you're white and male. So, yeah.
But do you not think we are being trained to be afraid of extraterrestrials?
Yeah.
We're being told to be fearful of them.
There was a phase, and there was a particular phase, a series of films about this that seemed to bring this kind of idea out. One of them was Independence Day, which was it's a pretty lousy film.
No, come on, how I man. No, we'll just talk about
It's trash. We've never agreed on this, but it is interesting to watch it just for the propaganda value of it, and realising the message is in a very, very simplistic and monolithic way. I think it's aimed at people who are not terribly bright, I would say.
Well, there was...
insulting Richard's taste, but it's true.
No, I don't like many films, to be fair, but I thought it was interesting that one of the disclosure witnesses, David Adair, actually came out on the strength that he said that the kind of set on the Independence Day, their take on Area 51 was so similar to the real thing that he thought, you know, these are drips of disclosure. Yeah. This is why I'm coming out and saying it, because like 10 years ago I'd been ridiculed to death. Now these things are there. I feel more comfortable coming out and saying.
I suppose the question is it because there are real aliens like that, or do they just want us to believe that? There's another film by M. Night Shyamalan, Signs, with Mel Gibson. That's actually a lot. It is. It's much better than Independence Day, but it has a similar plot. Dawn?
Serious question. What do you think of the film, Paul?
When I first saw it, I didn't like it. When I first saw it, I went to see it in the cinema, and I thought it's taking the mickey too much. But you know, it's really grown on me, and now I really enjoy that film. I really do. I mean, honestly, surely we've all got a sense of humour. Part of having a good sense of humour is acknowledging parodies of oneself and appreciating humour, even if you are the butt of the joke, you can still see the funny side of it. And Paul,
Brilliant.
that film, Paul, really makes me feel that way. It's a joke that's essentially about people like us that I can laugh at, I can enjoy. But it's a good comedy film. Trish?
I don't know how many people have seen a film called Extraterrestrial. It's brilliant.
Trish and I were talking about this we were talking about this privately in the break. It looks, I've not seen it, but you've told me about it, and I've looked at it. Yeah, it looks just up my street actually.
But when you watch it at the end, it's basically what's still going on now that the government cover it up.
Right.
So you'll get that. You'll see that at the very end. It's brilliant.
I've really got to see it now. Yeah. There's a gentleman and a lady behind you who are fighting over who's going to ask the next question.
It was just on last week on TCM. I think,
oh, well, I've got to see
it.
Channel.
Sir, what do you think of Donald Trump doing Star Command or whatever he's done?
Space Force.
Yes.
That's interesting. Yeah, the arrival of the Space Force is really quite extraordinary. Now, the United States is not the first country on Earth to have a Space Force. Several others do. For example, Israel has one. And the head of Israel's Space Force is a guy called General Haim Shed. Now he's very interesting. He's made some very interesting comments. Now there's nothing. Everything's in its original Hebrew, but you can translate it. And he's come out with some extraordinary comments. I won't go into details now, but he's very clearly he's truly revealing an awful lot. And he's a very high-level placed person. He's not the sort of person to make this stuff up. China has a Space Force too, which is actually quite developed. They've successfully shot down an American satellite with a laser weapon, which the Americans weren't too pleased about. They didn't pursue the matter any further. They said the Chinese were obviously testing their weapon. But it's odd that, again, it's not that the Space Force has been formed, it's the fact it's been formed now during this time period. During the Trump administration was truly a historical event. I mean, it was terminated very abruptly for reasons I won't talk about. This has got to go onto YouTube. But it was terminated prematurely and abruptly by dark forces, shall we say. And I wonder what would have happened if it had continued, if Trump had remained president for the next, at the moment, if he's still president now, had an 8-year term. Dave?
Yeah, this is just the same related to Adam's question about Space Force. The Space Force is just, that's the new soundbite word for the secret space program, which has been going a long time. In all countries around the world have a similar space program, and they're all working together, but they still give the impression that, you know, Russia's the body, China's the body, and all that, but they're all working in collusion. They're all work together on a bigger project. Michael Salla talks about that.
Yeah, Michael Salla's very interesting indeed. Yeah, that the Space Force officially is not involved with. The secret space program is by definition secret. Bless you. And officially, it's not. Officially, the Space Force does not have things such as the TR-3B anti-gravity spacecraft and things like that. However, such things exist. The secret space program is real, and it could be we getting to a point, and maybe this is what Trump wanted to do, to use the Space Force as a way of, as a kind of soft disclosure for the secret space program, or the beginning of a process that would lead to full acknowledgement of the secret space program. It's something we may see in the future. Trump is now running for president again. If he becomes president for a second time, it's not for quite a while now. Unfortunately, we've got a long time to wait. But if it were to happen, yeah.
Well, I think it's Star Wars.
Sorry?
Star Wars. It's not looking in on the news, it's looking out.
This is the thing, they see, they're already talking, there's a document called The Control of Cislunar Space. And that's a look up. Cislunar space refers to space which is above, which is higher than lower Earth orbit, but is basically between the Earth and the Moon. Is below the distance of the Moon. And there's a document that's just been published by the Space Force talking about ways and means of controlling cislunar space. Now, how do you do that with current rocket technology? You know, but also Star Wars. I mean, is it just about control of the Earth or control of what's outside, like you said? Now, for if the secret space program, you see, has far more abilities, it's quite likely there are bases on planets in the solar system, maybe beyond, that are run secretly. There was an instance actually in the 60s where, now both the Cold War superpowers tried to do this. The Americans went first, trying to detonate a nuclear bomb on the Moon, which was a. Obviously, there's no strategic. It was obviously done for show. They would probably, if the bomb was big enough, it might have even made a new crater, which they would have probably named. They probably named it after somebody. But the rocket was blown up. The test rocket was blown up in flight. Dr. David Jacobs has reported on this, and his Major Mansman, his boss, has come forward and is now backing him up. On his testimony. This Major Mansman was the guy who told Jacobs not to say anything. Warned him, said, "Don't never talk about this again."
I mean, Bob Jacobs.
Bob Jacobs, yeah. Did I say David Jacobs? No, David Jacobs is someone else. Instantly, David Jacobs is a guy who's talking about alien invasion and things like that.
It's like that UFO flies in there, shoots something, and it goes down. Yeah.
I very much recommend a book and documentary, UFOs and Nukes, of which Bob Jacobs has contributed considerably.
Robert Salas.
Yeah. Robert Salas, yeah. Bob Salas was a missileer, they call it, the someone in charge of launching the weapons and the nuclear weapons itself. The guy with his finger on the button. He reports UFO experiences in 1966 at Malmstrom Air Force Base, and at the launch facility. Now, obviously, this is a guy
my favourite story.
You can't call him a nutcase because for obvious reasons, his mental health was very carefully monitored. Because if he got a screw loose, it would be the end of the world. So his mental health was very carefully monitored. They don't just let anyone do a job like that. So, yeah, I mean, it's. I think what you said. If it was you asked the question, didn't you? You know, it's possibly they are. As Carol Rosin said, you know, the weaponisation of space, which it could be used to further the idea that we need. See, if there are bad aliens out there, whether they're real or imagined, the core will inevitably go up, either because it's been done on purpose as a strategy, or because it's opportunistic. You know exactly what politicians are going to say. You could almost write their scripts for them, couldn't we? We need to come together as one world. in a global state of emergency to protect us from this threat from beyond our planet. Therefore, we are creating a new international body with emergency powers, temporary, of course. And you know the story, don't you? I mean, it'd be just perfect for them if everything else fails. I mean, so far, what if disease fails and economic hardship fails and the climate's change, people don't believe the climate change thing and stuff like that. What they may play the last card, as Carol Rosin said. She's quoting Werner von Braun. Yeah.
What's your opinion of Spielberg?
I'll come back to you, but let me. Dave had his hand up, so I'll come back to you.
Kind of that's the argument.
Thanks, Dawn. Dave, sorry.
That's the argument on the film, The Day of the Earth Stood Still, the original one.
Yeah.
It's because when he makes that speech at the end before he gets back in the ship, and he says, "We don't really care about your petty squabbles, as long as you keep it to your own planet."
Yes.
When you're threatened, and that's what you can't trust, is they want to weaponize space. Take that conflict out into other civilizations.
Was that the message that was given to Bob Jacobs and his team when they launched the test rocket for the moon explosion?
Well, I think humans are more of a threat than what
that the aliens don't want us. They don't like us using these weapons, but they're saying if you're going to use them, keep them on your own planet. I think that may be the message they were giving out. You were asking about what do I think of Steven Spielberg? Well, he's a great filmmaker. I mean, he's done two films about aliens. Well, he's done more than he's done E.T. as well. But his early period contained several interesting films about aliens, specifically Close Encounters of the Third Kind and E.T., which present a very optimistic vision of our encounters with beings from other worlds. Maybe excessively so, maybe slightly naive. But then he also made War of the Worlds. He did the most recent adaptation of H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, which is about an alien invasion. It was the original alien invasion story. It was 1898, I believe, the novel came out, which indicates that he has changed considerably during the course of his life, and he admits this. In fact, in the 90s, he did like a 20th anniversary. He did a 20th anniversary documentary for Close Encounters, and there was a celebratory video or DVD, and he says, "I'm not the same man I was. I couldn't make Close Encounters today because I'm not the same man I was when I was young." And the thing about Close Encounters is there's several elements to it which indicate he knew a few things behind the scene. He knew J. Allen Hynek. Hynek appears in the film. It's very well researched, this film. Yeah. And Hynek appears briefly in a cameo in one of the shots during the mothership scene. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting guy.
When I saw the movie, I got quite a shock.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I thought he knows.
Yes, he knew.
He seen it, done it.
It was that Ronald Reagan apparently made a statement saying, "How much did this guy know?"
Yeah. Well, Reagan sat in the theatre watching it, going, "It's funny that only a couple of guys in the room know how true this actually is."
Yeah, as it was an open meeting with people. Yes, madam.
Just about David, what you were saying before about possibility of going up to space to defend it and all this stuff. Aren't we being slightly arrogant, assuming we've got the technology and the ability to do that when they've been flying around for thousands of years?
Yes, I mean, well, it's certainly with the kind of military technology, certainly with the military technology we know about that's publicly available. What could we possibly do? I mean, you know about the 5 observables. You've seen how conventional weapons are. These things. They literally fly circles around the fastest of our military jets.
Yeah, but you're still, you're going against aliens that have been possibly visiting Earth for thousands upon thousands of years.
Yeah.
We didn't even have the wheel.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean,
it's clearly they're far advanced with us.
Enough.
Yeah.
And I think certain, say, people in power have been incredibly arrogant to think that we stand a chance. That we can defend or fight, and why do we have to fight?
Yeah, if they think, obviously we're dealing with something which is much more sophisticated, and if they were true, this is why, obviously not all of them are hostile, or we'd all be dead if they were all hostile.
Yeah.
We can deal with things that, like you say, they can run rings not just around our aircraft, but around rockets in launch phase.
Silos.
Yeah. They can penetrate our nuclear facilities. They're immune. They seem to be immune to everything. This is why I don't go along with the secret deal theory. You know, do this and we'll let you abduct
They
people.
don't need it.
The aliens. If we were entering some kind of negotiation with the aliens, we wouldn't have an awful lot to bring to the table, wouldn't we? It would be a bit of a Melian dialogue. You know, the aliens don't need our permission to abduct us. They've been doing it for thousands of years. They don't need. There's no deal involved. Yeah, Dave.
According to Michael Solan, he elaborates on this, and there's other people. He says that in the secret space program, they do have technology that 300 years ahead of what you think they have. Right?
Yeah.
But they're not going to tell you that, obviously. You know, people still believe in Stone Age rockets. You know, that gets them to places. They've got aerial ships that can move interdimensional and stuff like that. And as I say, he says that 300 years ahead. So they've got the technology which is being shared.
Well, is that still enough?
It's enough because obviously.
Could it match a technology that's been the problem is though, I mean, the ETs have technology that's way even ahead of that. I mean, I believe that what we have back engineered some of their technology. In no way do we match them. Certainly, even in numbers, let alone in technology. However, you're absolutely right. There is a secret space program that is still way in advance of what is publicly available right now. As Dr. Stephen Greer said, you know, really, what would happen if that technology, rather than being sequestered and coveted by this elite, this malevolent elite, what if it was made available to all people for the good of humanity? Just think what it could do. Just think. I mean, read my book. I don't know how many of you actually read the first book, but or the whole trilogy. That's what my books are all about. It's about the process by which this happens, and we'd be living in a world, as I think Dr. Greer's new film is called The Lost Century, for that reason. Hello.
What do you think, the crop circles?
I think they're wonderful works of art, which are obviously some of them are made by people. I mean, I know guys who do it, and some of them are. I mean, but not all of them can be explained by human activity. There is it is a minority actually that I'm talking about here. Probably some people say 25%, but these are not the products of human activity. There's been scientific studies done by people. Well, there was one done by the Levengood team a long while ago. David Caton, I think his work he did with Richard D. Hall is much more definitive. But they appear, and they can't be accounted for by human activity. They appeared during the lockdown, for example, when people weren't allowed to travel anywhere, and anyone seen on the roads at the dead of night would have been arrested, for example.
Janet Ossenberg, she used to investigate crop circles, didn't she?
Yes, she did, and she and Bert Janssen.
She made some brilliant documentaries on the pandemic, hasn't she?
Oh yes, the Fall of the Cabal. Yes, that was her documentaries on that subject were excellent. But she also made some with Bert Janssen, and they both appeared in a very good documentary by Miles Johnston called To Catch a Circle Maker. And he had an interview with Matthew Williams, who is one of the guys who makes them with planks. And there's no doubt, you know, Matthew's a talented guy. So are the other people who make them. Some of their designs are very sophisticated, but in no way does that account for the entire phenomenon. And indeed, there's been a lot when the crop circle phenomena really broke out. I think it was very suddenly. I think it was about late 80s. It became a real thing, didn't it? And it was on news programs all the time. And
Doug and Dave came
exactly. Then what happened was clearly this was, as Freddie Silver has said, that there were official investigations by the Ministry of Defence. At the same time, they were doing secret investigations, which he wasn't involved with. And then suddenly, we had the equivalent of the Julian Barnes article. Doug and Dave, two old guys from Wiltshire, Douglas Bowers, David Chorley, suddenly appeared on TV and said, "Oh, we've been making them." And they demonstrated this by actually making a simple design in broad daylight in front of TV cameras, and then the next headline the next day was "Fool You," and that ended the popular crop circle, crop circle craze. And do you know what? I fell for that, and I'm not proud of myself. It was actually years later I saw Andy Thomas on the Esther Ranson show, and he was showing pictures of them. I said, "What, is this still going on?" I thought this had been done with. And I suddenly realised what was actually the truth behind it all, because I started looking behind the headlines.
Have you been crop circling?
Yeah, I have. I've been to a few of them.
Have you noticed all the geos at the ground?
I've noticed that. All I noticed was when I get there, in some of them, they have an amazing atmosphere. I've no way of knowing whether the ones I'm in are man-made or not. You know, but I felt that there was an intense atmosphere in one of the ones I went to. Maureen.
What about the gated grave?
Oh, yeah, I'd love to go back.
You're
Maybe.
very near the gated.
I've got to go back there. I don't know if I'll have time, but I'd love to go back there.
The gated grave.
This happened just literally, yeah.
Bob Hall.
Is he still alive, Bob Hall?
No, he's not.
He was pretty old 20 years ago, wasn't he?
On YouTube. He was interviewed by Richard Hall.
Yeah.
And described it was it just after the war? Before
It was 1940. It was the early days of World War II, and it hadn't really got going yet.
And
But-
they took the body. I took Andrew Johnson to the church where they took the body of the alien.
Yeah, Richard took me there, and I didn't go down into the cellar because it was all mucky in those days, and it was late at night. But apparently there was the church has set up some kind of shop or something down there.
Yeah, it's a shop. It's like a mirror shop.
Yeah, I've got to go back there. I mean, I don't know if I'll probably.
I'll take you tomorrow morning.
Well, yeah. Oh, brilliant!
Yeah, I'll take you tomorrow morning.
Fantastic. I'll go back. I'd love to see it in daylight and see where it happened. But yeah, in Gateshead, just over the river in Gateshead, in 1940,
Bensham.
there was a
It's in Bensham.
Bensham. Yeah, there's I know where it is. It's well, I know. I've been there. I know. I mean, you guys know the local area where around the place. There was literally a creature was seen.
The film Richard Hall does with him, when the guy speaks, Bob Hall, he has subtitles because he's so broad-jawed.
He speaks very broad-jawed, yeah.
Subtitles.
Much more. I mean, I think older people tend to, and it's effectively a foreign language when you speak it at full strength. And yeah, but it is subtitles for so you can understand it. But he talks about how his Uncle Joe, who was actually very old and sort of a bit Joe Biden when he was actually photographed by Richard. He was not in a state to be interviewed. He attacked it with a coal shovel.
Yeah.
And I've seen the actual.
Wasn't his uncle that attacked it or a policeman?
It was his uncle attacked it, and a policeman took it to the cellar.
Yes, that's right.
But Uncle Joe whacked it over the head with a coal shovel. I've seen the spot where I've seen the gate where he came out is still there. The pavement hasn't changed. It's not tarmac. It's like flagstones, and the stones are still the same. I've seen the curbstone where the alien tripped. That very same curbstone is still there, and he whacked it with a coal shovel. Yeah, and but Richard was very impressed with. As Richard, Richard D. Hall is a very. Richard D. Hall.
They didn't do that in Independence Day, just whack the aliens with a shovel.
No, he just said, "Die, you alien shithead!" He didn't do Will Smith with him. But Richard, of course, Richard D. Hall is a level-headed scientific guy. He doesn't believe everything he's told. He does apportion it to evidence. And he said that Bob Hall, no relation. Bob Hall was a very, very good witness. He also had Daryl Sims interview him as well. God knows how Daryl understood a word he said, but probably Richard had to act as an interpreter. But
so did it happen in the graveyard?
It happened on the street.
On the street.
What happened was Hall, because Daryl Sims said that Hall was a very, very good witness. He said that this guy was a very terribly, to be fair, with no disrespect to him, but he wasn't a terribly ingenuous person. He was rather simple. He was a rather simple guy, and he was just describing something that happened in his childhood, and he was very consistent with his memories. And Richard and Daryl were very impressed with him, and he described seeing it was like a portal type structure. Like he saw a small craft. He described a portal-like structure. He described seeing. He was only like 5 or 6 years old at the time, but he recalled seeing creatures of various kinds, including greys, There was like a Bigfoot-like creature, which he describes as being like Chewbacca from the film Star Wars, and several other types. He saw behind this wall, this shimmering wall of mist. It was like an interdimensional portal. One of the as I said, one of the greys ran up the road, tripped on a curbstone. Uncle Joe was there with his coal shovel and whacked it in fear. It was taken to the cellar of the church, and from there we don't know what happened to it. Presumably it was taken away by the army.
The men in black came. The men in black came and threatened him.
Oh right, yeah, and that's interesting. Yeah, Paul doesn't, because he doesn't appear to be someone who's like really into the sort of things we're into. In other words, would make up a story like that. Same with Jim Templeton, the guy who took the photo of the Solway Firth alien in 1964.
That's the astronaut, yeah? From
Yeah.
the Kodak.
That's it, yeah. The concept of the Men in Black really didn't exist in those days. It literally, even though they existed, encounters took place, but it was only John Keel in the 60s who first started codifying the field of study. And then, of course, this was long before the movies with Will Smith and Jamie Lee Jones, which really popularised the idea.
What do you think? Who or what do you think shadow people are?
They're more like some kind of ghost. And
I think they're the jinn.
They could well be, yeah. People see them out the corner of their eyes, and
I didn't see it at the corner of my eye.
you saw it in front of you, yeah.
I was in bed, and the first time I saw them, there was 2 of them. And then a couple of months later, I saw 3 of them.
Were you experiencing sleep paralysis at the time? See, because I suffer from sleep paralysis.
No,
regularly.
I don't know, I just opened my eyes.
Yeah. Because, you see, I suffer from sleep
I
paralysis.
have had sleep paralysis.
Yeah. It's very strange. I mean, I get it every couple of weeks, actually. It's not a big deal. Normally I just wake up and I can't move anything except my eyes. And eventually I do snap out of it and I wake up properly. It's simply an effect of, but occasionally, very occasionally, I see things in the room that shouldn't be there.
Right.
And strange creatures. And funny enough,
I
people
hear things.
You hear things, strange sounds. Yeah. People all over the world who have sleep paralysis report seeing these same beings. Like there's the man with the hat. There's the old hag with the pointed hat and the dirty dress. Interestingly, is the Hollywood depiction of the witch, isn't it? Which is very strange. And funny enough, people from lots of different cultures, lots of different racial, religious, geographic backgrounds, perceive the same creatures. Now there's only two possibilities here. One is that the human brain is hardwired to produce these images under certain states of consciousness, and that in itself requires incredible explanation. Or what they're seeing is objectively real, and I think that's more likely. I think what I saw was much more likely to be objectively real than just a product of my imagination. It wasn't a dream. You know, I was awake. I was awake apart from the fact that I was just lying there, and I could move my eyes. Eventually I did wake up and the thing disappeared, but very odd that was. It was very nice.
Could you just confirm the film Armageddon? You know, about the meteor being blown up. I'm sure I've heard an article on the radio saying the Americans have tried to alter the course of a meteor with a nuclear bomb recently.
Oh, it wasn't a nuclear bomb. They rammed it with a spaceship.
Right.
Apparently it's quite successful. I forgot what the spaceship was called, but it just literally crashed into this object to see if it could shift its trajectory. It did slightly. Luckily, it didn't. It actually was designed to direct the meteor away from the Earth. However, of course, it could be weaponized. If what can be directed away from the Earth, they could easily direct it towards the Earth using the same method, couldn't they?
Can I just hit a bit on the ancient aliens thing where had help landing a satellite or anything on anything that's moving that fast in space is testament to exactly what humans can do, because that is no small feat what they did there, landing something on a comet.
It was really amazing. Yeah, it was a remarkable achievement. Sorry?
He drilled the hole, yeah.
It's odd that these two films came out within a year of each other on the very, very same theme, Deep Impact and Armageddon. And I don't think that's a coincidence.
There was the film studios competing with each other, wasn't it? The Paramount and Columbia competing with each other.
I don't think it's You're right.
I know we're over time, I don't want to tell you again.
No, I mean, if you want, you've got to do the raffle. And what's the time now?
It's 9:15.
Right. If you want to do the raffle, that's cool with me.
No, are you got any more stuff to? Are you happy that this lot just bombarding you with questions?
That's absolutely fine with me. If you've got any more, I mean, I don't know how late you want to go on for. Does anyone else want to ask a question? Trish.
It's slightly off the subject of UFOs and everything, but I think it was last week I was watching a really good documentary on Sky Arts, and it was about, is there a Bigfoot or like a Yeti? And this guy from America came to the UK, and he went to see this guy, and he was a Geordie, and he was near the Kielder Reservoir area, the forest area around there. And the stuff he was telling me about him was quite amazing.
Oh right, that sounds interesting.
And there's been a lot of sightings.
Yeah, Geordie.
Three spots.
Geordie Bigfoot.
Yeah, I was
One's round about
Hull,
one's down
Kielder,
south,
and
and the other one is round.
Wasn't Paul Sinclair, was it?
Where they've seen cryptids.
Paul Sinclair.
Yeah. He's not a Geordie.
No.
the guy was told me he was a Geordie, this guy is
See-
talked to, bald head.
Yeah. Paul, they've creatures like that have been seen in this country. Not
It was
not
really
just Bigfoot, but
interesting,
creatures.
it was on about 2 hours.
Yeah, dogmen and especially in the area around East Riding of Yorkshire, Bempton, just north of Hull. That seems to be a hot spot.
Yeah.
And Paul Sinclair, several other people have been investigating that, and I think Iconic are going to do a...
Is anything up in Kielder Forest that's going to be eaten alive by the bloody mozzies up
Yes.
there?
Oh right. Yeah, but yeah, this is it is a really interesting thing that's like that these creatures are not confined to where they sometimes, I mean obviously like they're seen most of all in remote areas where there's a lot of woodland, like the Himalayas, like North America. However, they can be seen in areas where those environments don't exist, those habitats aren't there. They've even been seen in the middle of towns and cities, which indicates that they're probably not the same thing as the Bigfoot we know about. It's more likely Bigfoot-like creatures, which are actually alien or spirit beings or etheric beings or something like that.
Well, I suppose the habitat's changing, isn't it?
So
See, they're quite sort of creatures that they don't like to be out in the daylight time because they don't want to be seen. So they usually come out more of a night time when they think there's no population around or anything like that. They don't like to be seen.
There's been multiple, like they're called werewolves. They're like the dogmen. They've been seen near Hull. There's actually a town near Hull called Hunmansby, which is a Danish next to part of Danelaw. Hunmansby means village of the dogman. And there's something called the Bempton, the drain. It's like a canal called something drain, where for the last 250 years there's been regular sightings of what they call old stinker because it has a terrible smell. A bad smell is often reported associated with these phenomena, and it is like a humanoid with a dog-like head. And it was seen again for the first time since the 1960s. I was doing an episode of Panmo Radio, and someone was reporting was going on this werewolf hunt with about 200 other people from Hull. It was just a big. I think they just saw it as a joke, but they didn't see anything. But it was quite amusing. That, yeah. Madam.
Bowden Lake near us, a couple of years back, where they said they found some people had seen a tall fella like Yeti type fella walk along, but there is an Iron Age hill fort there, so they don't know if it's connected to that.
It could be because, of course, in the Iron Age they had the Druids.
Yes.
Who were like essentially a shamanic order, which is indigenous to this country. Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah. Does anyone else? Is that it?
Yeah.
Well,
One
I
thing.
appreciate
What do you think of Billy Myers?
Oh
Is he a
man.
fake?
I don't know much about him actually. There's some rather crude.
The guy from
images.
Switzerland.
The guy with one arm, who's
The one on farmer who had to be an expert in 60 odd different disciplines to like prove his story.
Well, this is the interesting thing. I mean, I don't know much about
There's a
him, to be
lot of
honest.
sheep.
I know a lot of people. Some people take him seriously.
His hang from trees.
Yeah. So we were talking about Netherlands earlier, about how some people said that UFOs aren't a big thing in the Netherlands. There's a Dutch, we mentioned Janet Ossenbach, Bert Janssen. There's a guy called Gerard Arter who's also very interested in Billy Meyer. But yeah, I appreciate all these questions and comments are brilliant. I appreciate your attention this evening. Don't forget, this is a double bill. I am on tour, so to speak, and I will be back tomorrow afternoon. So if you return at 2 p.m, I'll be doing a talk about the end of the world, not as we know it. So, see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, babe. I've got a little present for you.
Oh, sorry, one second.
These were created by Dawn.
Oh, what? Oh, True Seeker's notebook. Oh, it's got. I'm a ray of fucking sunshine. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Maureen. Thank you. Thank you. That's great. Oh, this is just perfect for me. So is the bookmark.
So come back tomorrow.
Notes of a critical thinker.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to do the raffle now. Just